Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and I teach watercolor, a new tutorial every week, and this week we are doing the Panda.
Oh, Panda.
Panda.
Yeah.
That's the end of what movie?
Secret Life of Pets,
2.
1 or 2.
Secret Life of Pets 2.
We have young children.
We do have young children. Okay, anyways. We are using 3 colors and 3 paintbrushes in this project. And we're doing this project in 5 steps. So our very first step is we're going to put in the darkest values. So we're going to put in the center of the ears, around the eyes, the shadows, like the nostrils and the mouth, and then the neck, chest. Step 2, hold on, I gotta check my notes here. Okay, step 2, we're gonna finish up the ears and the eye sockets and the chest, and then we're gonna add some fur texture using our fan brush. Step 3, we are going to do paint around the nose and do a little bit of fur textures on the side of the head to give our head more form. Step 4, we are going to finish the eyes by putting the actual eyeballs in and the nose. And then step 5 is just some finishing fur details. And I always think that the last step should be you guys kind of walking away for a minute and then coming back to it and seeing if you need to make any more adjustments. We are using 3 paintbrushes. We're using a round 6, a round 2. These are our Let's Make Art classic brushes. And if you're a subscriber, you got a fan brush size 4 in your box. So we're gonna use that, but you can use any fan brush. The 3 colors we are using today is berry blue.
Did I just hear old-timey 20s Sarah?
Yeah.
Do it one more time.
You got a little, the colors we are using today. Yeah, see? Berry blue is really similar to deep blue, except it has slightly more purple undertones to it. So it's really great for mixing. If you're gonna mix, if you're planning on mixing your blue with a pink, then it's a really great color for doing that. We are using magenta. Had to make sure I had my color name right. And we are using honey brown. Those 3.
Sarah, well,
Yes.
I got you here.
Sure.
Pandas are a bear.
Uh-huh.
Are they mean?
No.
Like, I feel like I would want to go pet a panda, but I don't ever feel like I'd want to go pet a grizzly bear.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I said no with such confidence. I have no idea. I mean, like, I haven't heard anything about them because you know how, like, hippos, you hear that they actually kill a lot of people, and you wouldn't expect that. I've never heard that about pandas. And I really only just see them eating bamboo, and then those videos of the baby pandas rolling around.
Or the scared one.
Yes, when their baby sneezes. Are we allowed to put that in there?
Yeah.
Chris.
I don't know, actually. Try, Chris.
Chris, see if you legally see if we can do this. And then right here, do that little 3-second video of the baby sneezing, and the mom goes.
I hope that works out.
Me too, it's the best.
The other thing is I always see pandas portrayed as friendly in media. Like, you know, cartoons, they're always like friendly little pandas.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking they're friendly, and then I'm like, well, they portray pretty much all bears like that. Like, bears are like cuddly, soft, but in real life, they're godless killing machines. They are! Again, I am not a bear expert.
If you know about bears, please let us know.
If you are a bear,
panda bears. Comment with your fun facts.
if you're a real bear, tell us about your life.
If you are an actual panda bear, first of all, congratulations for painting. That's so great. And I hope I do you justice. I really do. Okay, so we have an outline with this project. You can get them for free on our website. If you don't know how to get our outlines, you go to Learn With Us, Resources, Digital Assets. It will take you to where we have all of the outlines. You got to add them to your cart and check out, even though they are free. And then they will be emailed to you. That's how it works. I think I said that right. Okay, anyways. And then you should have graphite paper. You're going to want to tape your outline down to your watercolor paper. Put the graphite paper dark, shiny side down. And then whatever mark you make on your paper, it's going to show up on here. It's going to show up on your paper. I'm going to press a little bit harder so that way you guys can see what I'm doing in the tutorial, but really try and make it as light as you can stand, because watercolor is transparent. So if you have pencil lines or graphite lines, that is going to show through your watercolors. And in the peony tutorial, and you can let me know if this is helpful because we did that one a couple weeks ago, what I did is I did solid lines for when there's going to be a solid line, and then I did dashes when there was going to be like shadows or highlights. If that's helpful for you guys, let me know and I can keep doing that. I'm just trying to think of ways to make these outlines really easier for you to understand what's going on in the outline, and also have you be aware while you're tracing it, like if it should be a really dark line or not. So let me know. I also started to color in the eyes on things because they look so creepy when the eyes are not colored in.
I remember when you were doing pet portraits and you'd have like 100 to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like you would blow through them, and I feel like one time in California you didn't feel like doing eyes or something on any of them. And I came home from school and it was just all these like soulless, eyeless animals everywhere. And I was like...
Well, some people like to do their eyes first. I like to do my eyes last because I want them to be very detailed. I don't want like anything to mess it up, and I feel like if I do my eyes first, then there's a greater chance of like paint spilling on it while I'm painting the rest of the thing, or my hand, you know, my wrist smearing it or something like that. So I always do my eyes last, but unfortunately a side effect of that is that your animal looks super weird until you put the eyes in. And that's why I have to tell people, especially when we paint animals, to be patient, because it's gonna look really kind of creepy. And then once you put the eyeballs in, you're like, oh, okay. You just gotta be a little bit patient. But if it bothers you so much that it doesn't make you want to do it, then put your eyes in first and you'll feel better about your animal.
Do you have a favorite and least favorite animal to paint?
Honestly, I really struggle with painting cats. We did a cat project and I think it turned out well, but like I feel really confident in my dog painting and like basically any animal. But when it comes to cats, I just have this, I don't know, I struggle with them. I don't know why. I feel like I can't get the same amount of like form as I do my other animals. I wonder if it's because I just like know that, and so I like stress about it and then like overwork it.
Maybe it's because their faces are like, they don't have as much of a pronounced muzzle. They're kind of just flatter.
They're kind of flat, but there's still form to them, but then they're also covered in hair. So I'm like, how do I paint you? That's how I feel.
Do you ever get any weird requests like snakes or anything?
For what?
When you were doing pet portraits?
Oh, no. I think the most like quote unquote odd pet that I painted for a pet portrait was a goat. But besides that, mostly cats and dogs. There were some rabbits. I feel like I had like a chinchilla one time. That was pretty great. Okay. That looks good. I think that's good. Now, just so you know, outlines are just general guidelines for you to know kind of what's going on. If you miss an area, it's not the end of the world. Just kind of eyeball it in if you take your tracing paper off. Okay, we're gonna do our oath and then we're gonna do warm-ups and then we'll start. So if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
That one was a more soft.
That's like a gong hit.
Gong. Okay, we are gonna go over a few different warm-ups today. I'm gonna put the reference photo in frame so you guys can look at that. So one thing that we are gonna go over is our fan brush. In our Purple Sky tutorial, I showed you guys how to use that fan brush for trees, and this time we're using it for textures, like fur textures, which is going to be actually pretty similar to how we used it for trees. I'm just mixing a random color because it's warm-ups. You could use whatever color you want. But I want you to practice doing little tufts of fur. And by little tufts of fur, I mean you're not going to do long strokes. They're going to be really short, like this. Try them going to the left, try them going right, try them going up. And again, I'm lightly pressure holding onto my brush. But you can see that like this little fur texture here, I'm doing it around the eyes, I'm doing it around the ears. When I got to the chest, I allowed myself to get a little bit crazy and do like longer strokes. But I want you guys to play with it and just see maybe going side to side. Like, I just think these are such beautiful marks that are like thin, and it's just a really wonderful way to add visual interest to your painting without having to take your, round 2 or round 1 and do every single little mark. So it's pretty fun. And I'm sure you guys are gonna come up with some really creative and amazing ways to play with it. Now I'm just having a good time. Look at this.
And that's the end of the tutorial.
And this is all we're going to do for the rest of the class. I could just see this in a landscape though as like grass. Look at that. That's all right, focus. Anyways, lots of fun. Play with this, get familiar with it. It's always really scary trying something new because you always think, oh gosh, am I doing this right? Do I look silly doing this? All of that stuff. And that goes away the more you use it, to the point where you're like, I don't care if this is the right way to use it. This is how I figured out how to use it and it works for me. Okay, I'm gonna get another sheet of paper. Actually, I'll just use no, I don't wanna get paint on that. I'm gonna use my detail. Okay, we are going to work on values. So value is all about the lightness and darkness of a color. It's not necessarily about the color itself, it's more about how strong that color is. With regular painting, not regular, acrylic or oil painting, you have to use like black or white to get different values. In watercolor, we don't have to do that, which is why I love it. We just need to use water. So to get a dark value, that means the color is more pronounced. It's also more opaque. To get a lighter value, you add more water, which will make it more transparent, so the white of the paper shows through, therefore making it a lighter value. So if I totally dip my paintbrush in a color, this is my dark value. I dip it in the side of my cup, hit it off the side of my cup because we don't want any dripping paint. That's a lighter value. And that's a really light value. Whenever you're creating form of any kind, you want to make sure you have values. If you do not have values, then your painting will appear flat. Value is how we communicate three-dimensional form on anything. Okay, then blending. We do a little bit of blending on here. So what I like to do is I like to put my dark values down first. And then I like to spread those dark values using water. Now sometimes when you put down the paint, you're gonna get, like, it doesn't wanna move. And that happens sometimes. Like here, you can kind of see that there's like that edge. So if you're trying to like blend out and your color just is not moving, what I then do is instead of grabbing just water, I'll grab a little bit more paint, not as much as when I laid this down, mostly water and a little bit of paint. And I'll blend and try and make that line even. So then it's more of a natural transition. Do you see how that kind of transitions out a little bit more?
Yes, ma'am.
And frankly, some of you guys have mentioned that like their paints don't blend. I don't know if that has to do with like the humidity of where you are. It might, if you're using the same exact paints and paper as we are. I feel like there's a lot of factors that I can't say that if you do it this way, it will be right every time. Because even like me right now, like that didn't blend out the same way that I wanted it to. That could also be the paint sometimes. Sometimes paint gets a little bit grainy and it won't blend as smoothly as other paints. It might be due to the type of pigment that's in the paint, like the actual colors that they used. These are dye-based paints, but there's so many factors. I wish I could give you a simple answer. I don't know what it is. Okay, and then last thing is I did a little bit of drips in this. So I just want to show you guys that to get drips, I just get an area really wet. So this one I'm not hitting my paintbrush off the side of my cup. I'm letting it be nice and wet. And then I actually hold it up and knock it and let there be drips. And you can kind of control it by starting where you want drips to be. If you want to have control over that, you just kind of start them and then knock. Okay? We're ready to paint. So step one, I'm going to mix a black color, and I'm doing quote unquote black because we do not have black here, but that's okay. We're gonna mix all three of these colors together. They're gonna look black. So I'm gonna start with my berry blue, and I'm gonna grab some honey brown, and this is gonna make it look green, okay? The opposite of green on the color wheel is red. So my magenta is acting as my red. I'm gonna grab magenta, and if you mix magenta and green together, it will neutralize those colors and kind of turn it brown. Now I'm gonna grab more blue because I want this to have cooler undertones instead of warmer undertones. So blue or purple undertones as opposed to orange or yellow. If you're mixing a color and if it ever seems too much of one color, just use that color's complement, mix that in there, and it will tone down that one color that is too strong.
Red, you are beautiful. And it's like, oh, and tones down.
Yeah.
You give it its compliment.
Yeah. The green's like, dang, red.
Dang.
Okay. Now I have my black. I'm going to use my round 6. And I'm going to start by, let's start with my ears. So just the center of my ears, I'm going to put in this black color. And again, I don't want you to view this outline as a coloring book. You do not have to stay within the lines perfectly. I do not want you to stay within the lines perfectly. We have to have smooth transitions. So don't feel like you have to do everything within its thing. You're not rewarded for staying in the lines here. Is that too harsh? Too aggressive?
I don't think so. So, you know, they need to hear it.
Okay, I'm just saying you
It's tough
can
love.
color outside the line. I want you to. The lines are a general guideline for you, not like the law. Okay, and then around the eyes, so there's a lot of lines, and Michael, make sure you get a close-up of this one because we're gonna go in with the eyes, and I want there to be, all around eyes, there is the socket right underneath the eyeball that is going to be a darker value because your skull, or there's no bone underneath. So it goes in a little bit more than like your cheeks, because your cheeks have that bone in there, that cheekbone that makes it stick back out. So underneath the eye, so here's my eyeball, and then I left a thin white border for the eyelid, and then this is my socket here. And then this area I'm leaving white because it's going to be a lighter value, and then this area is dark. That's a pretty good black color.
I'm impressed.
Thank you. And then I'm doing up around the eye too, and again leaving a thin white line around the eyeball on the top for the eyelid. And I like to mix my colors as I go. So like if I start to run out of black, I'll just mix more black. And sometimes that will then change the color of the black as I go. That doesn't bother me. If my black is not exactly the same all across the board, it doesn't stress me out. But as long as my values are correct, then you'll be able to tell what's going on in the painting. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the left side. I should have done the left side first because then my wrist wouldn't be in this eye, but you live and you learn.
Can you like turn it, or will they be oblong shaped then?
No, you can totally turn it.
I just feel like I know you, and I know your wrist will get in that.
It absolutely
And
would.
it'll get on your nice sweater, and then
I know.
you can't get in the car.
I love this sweater.
You'll never be able to come home.
You won't be allowed inside. Okay. And again, we're doing these different values because even though on this panda, this whole area is black, even when there's all black and all white, there's still form on these things, which means that there are going to be different values. So I know it's really hard when you look at a white animal or a black animal and you're like, I don't understand how to paint this because my paper is white. I'm showing you, it's not that bad. But we just have to like communicate that all of these different things that we're painting are on different planes. I'll go more into that when we do the nose. So I'm going to do my nostril, and we're still on step one. My nostril, and I'm going to do my mouth. And let's start on the neck. So sometimes what I like to do is put water down first and then grab my paint and just kind of like drop it in. And watercolor is transparent, so sometimes it's really hard to get a nice dark black. So sometimes I have to do multiple layers. The key with multiple layers is you have to make sure that your top layer before you lay on your second one is dry. If you try and do it while it's wet, it just will not darken the same way. Also, when you're doing this chest area on the panda, you want to make sure that the darkest value, if you notice on here, this is a super dark value and then it gets a lighter value as I work my way out. We want to make sure we keep that. It would be the darkest value because that chin is casting a shadow on the neck and the chest. So we want to keep that dark. And then as it kind of rolls out towards us, the chest, the body, we can lighten that value up. And then I thought it would be fun to like have undertones of like blue and purple on this. So I'm gonna start dropping in. Your black mixture could like already have really strong blues in it, so you might not need to do this. Mine's actually pretty neutral, so I'm gonna start adding a little bit of blue and purple. And I'm trying to work quickly because when you're blending stuff out, you want to work fairly quickly. The longer you let something sit there without touching it, the harder it is to move it on your paper if you decide to move it. So again, I'm putting water down. Taking my black, dropping that in. And also this method can leave you with some super cool textures. And sometimes what will happen is as I'm painting, they'll dry with blooms. And a lot of the times, even if it doesn't match the value, I'll leave those blooms because I just think that they're like so beautiful and unique to what anyone else can do because blooms are accidental. And so don't be stressed if you start to get blooms in your thing, and instead maybe ask yourself, does this make my painting look a little bit more interesting? You know, instead of looking at it as a distraction, maybe say, that's actually really cool what's happening there. Can I appreciate the accidental beauty that happened instead of wanting to fix everything and have it be perfect? Because that's not our goal. Our goal is not perfection.
And again, and I've said this in previous tutorials, if you don't tell people it's an accident, they think you did it on purpose, and it looks awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And I just love, I have strong hints of blue here, a little bit of purple down in here. I know I have stronger like yellow undertones on this, but I actually really love how this blue and purple is looking. So I'm gonna leave that. I think that's really cool. And even over here, I like have a little bit of brown, and I feel like that is reading kind of green to me, which is also really cool. So like, just take a minute and appreciate what you're making for what it is. Okay, now we're moving on to step 2. So we're gonna kind of finish the ears and the eyes and the mouth and stuff. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm gonna take my round 6, get it wet, and then use this black that I already laid down to blend out my ears. Now you can see this has dried for a long time, so it's not blending very good. That's okay. I can pick up more color, and I'm gonna do a little bit bluer tones because I love what happened here. I wanna try and mimic that. So I'm gonna grab my black mixture with a little bit more blue in it and start dropping that in. Okay, and now I'm going to grab my fan brush and a little bit of paint and try and do some textures on the edge here, just like kind of poking out a little bit from my ear. And when this dries, we'll go back to it and do a little bit more on the top. I'm just kind of doing the edges right now. The other thing I want you to be aware of is your brain likes to make patterns whether you realize it or not. And when we have a texture like this, your brain is going to make you want to go evenly spaced patterns that are the same length around the entire ear. You're going to have to fight that. I think last tutorial or something, I was like, not today, brain.
People love that.
So whenever you notice that, you gotta be like, get out of here, brain. Not using you right now. And it's not bad that your brain does that, because as a viewer, it's good that our brain does that, because then it makes assumptions, so we don't have to work as hard to see things. So as a viewer looking at stuff, that works great. As someone who's trying to replicate what we view and what our brain sees, we just have to be more thoughtful and be like, no, I actually have to look at what I'm seeing, not what my brain is telling me that I see. If that makes any sense at all.
Total sense.
Is everything okay?
I'm grabbing the charger for the iPad.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, blending out the color. You can see it's not moving very much. That happens, that's okay. I'm going to pick up some more color. Basically, we want to make sure that the center of the ear is darkest, and then it's a little bit lighter value around it. And the reason why we do that is the center of the ear is where the hole is that goes into their brain. And so that has to be a darker value because it continues on and is a different plane than like the outer part of the ear. It's true for our own ears. The inner ear here is going to be a darker value because it's a hole than here, which is the outer edge of our ear, which is not a hole.
Biology 101, everybody. Thank you, Sarah.
Sometimes I say things and I hear them and I'm like,
ear, in fact, is not a hole.
You might be confused, but this right here, not a hole.
Also here, no. Here.
Is here a hole?
Yes.
Here? What's a hole really? All right, sorry about that. Now I'm going to do my little fur textures. Again, being thoughtful of the pattern that it's making. And if you notice a pattern, just go in there and mess it up. like do like a long one or like combine a couple of the sections or something. Ba-bam. Okay, those are my ears. Now we're gonna finish my eyes. So again, just taking a damp brush, I'm gonna blend this socket area. And those lines are staying pretty hard. So I'm gonna pick up some more color, bluish color. And that's it on that.
Beautiful.
We're still on step 2. So now I'm grabbing my fan brush and I'm going to add textures to my chest and my eyes a little bit. And I'm going to do more at the end. So this is kind of like first run of chest textures. So I'm just going to start kind of floofing here on my chest. And again, at this point, people should be able to tell that this is a panda. And I actually really love animals that have really strong characteristics like elephants and flamingos and pandas. Like their coloring or their shape is so familiar that it allows you to play with things a little bit more, because people will look at just this coloring and the marking and be like, that's a panda bear. So that gives you the freedom to be like, guess what, panda bear? You get some really cool, weird textures over here, or you have purple galaxy in your chest. You know what I mean? You picking up what I'm putting down, honey?
I am.
This is my husband, by the way.
I'm not Keenan.
Sorry. It's my husband, Michael.
It might look like I'm not paying attention to you, but I just have to have the iPad under the table to watch the cameras.
Oh, because it's charging?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I'm watching a movie down here.
You're like, what? Okay, and also I'm going to do lighter values, so I'm just going to take water and start kind of just using my fan brush and spreading some stuff around, letting it get messy, just really just having fun, seeing what kind of textures I can make. And if you want to do the raindrop or the drips, this is a good time to do it. You can use your fan brush to start it. There we go. Just be aware that it will drip off your page, so be aware of what's like underneath it. You know what I mean? Underneath your paper. Okay. And now this area is really wet from me doing the drips. So if I were to do fan textures, they would just bleed out. So I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till the end to do more of those, but it was a good start to get some really interesting stuff going on. And now I'm gonna do around the eyes. Now the eyes are a much smaller area than my ears and my chest. So if you just need to use the edge of your brush, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to use just the corner of my fan brush.
I like her at this state. First of all, her name is Martha, I decided.
Oh, that's such a good name for her.
I feel like she has reverse eyeshadow, and it makes her look like saucy, like she wants to talk meanly to a manager or something. You see it?
What do you mean reverse eyeshadow?
Like on her eye, it looks like she has big white eyelids right now. Maybe it's just on camera. Oh my gosh, yes. It totally looks like it. Look at her. She has like a furrowed look.
Oh, like this black part is like her eyebrows?
Yes. That's her eyebrows. Then her eyelid is white, and then she's like just annoyed looking.
I will say that when it comes to expressions, the shape of the eyes and the mouth is what, or like around the eyes and mouth, is what determines whatever expression that you're doing pretty much. So that's why I think painting animals are fun, because like even slightly changing the angle of the eye, it will make it either look mad or happy. It's really funny. So that's why I always like kind of name my animals and see what personalities kind of come out while I'm painting it, because one I could paint and it could be really soft and peaceful like this one. This one just looks happy. This one though, this one is starting to look a little bit angry or irritated. So it's just funny to see. And then I name them depending on how angry or irritated they look, pretty much. Martha. I don't know. I always associate Martha with like someone who's soft.
I named her. Sorry, my mic was off. I named her before she started looking saucy.
Well, let's see if I can do something about that sauciness when we finish up her eyes. It's too early.
Fix Martha.
It's too early to like let them stay in this expression. Okay. Now we are going to do the shadows around the nose and the head, and then fill in the mouth. So what we're trying to communicate here is that the nose and that the cheeks are on two different planes. And what I mean by that is that if you were to put your hand at the tip of your nose and your hand at your cheek, you would see that they don't touch. They're separated, which means they're on two different planes. This one's out here and this one is back here. And how we communicate planes when we're painting something or drawing something two-dimensionally is with value. So whenever we want to push something back in a painting in space, you have to give it a darker value. Okay, so the nose is going to be a lighter value, and the cheeks around this nose is going to be a slightly darker value, and that itself will make the nose pop out and then make it feel like it has form. If you were to paint the nose and the cheeks the same value, then it would appear like it's on one surface. And I'm sure there are animals that have like a completely flat face. Michael, can you think of one?
I feel like some like primates have them.
Oh yeah, like maybe more
Like orangutan.
Yeah. Well, they have actually really strong like brow.
Like a plate.
Yeah. Okay, we're going off, but that's what I'm trying to say. So with that knowledge, we also are painting on white fur. So how do we communicate value changes on white? So really, you can use whatever color you want. You just want to make sure it's really, really, really light. So I'm going to do like a yellowish here. So I'm going to grab a little bit of my honey brown and mix with my black. Now, if that mixture is looking too green for you, grab a little bit of your magenta and put that in there, and that should neutralize the green and make it more brown. You're also free to make this like have a blue light value for this, but I felt like if I did a blue value on the white part and not like a yellow warm, then this painting would feel really cold, because blue and purple are cool colors. So I wanted to add a little bit of warmth. But it is your painting, so if you want to do all blue, absolutely do it. You're the artist, you get to make those decisions. So with my kind of light brown value, I'm going to paint around the mouth and the nose, and then immediately grab water and blend out roughly to where I have it outlined of the shadow. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Around the mouth, really quickly grab some water. If there's too much water on your brush, utilize your paper towel to dry it off. And then I know I have outlines here, but I really encourage you to go outside the outlines a little bit and make sure that that transition is smooth. Smooth as in it naturally moves to the white. It wouldn't feel right if you just did a light value within these color lines and had it do a hard stop and have there be a strong value difference between the white paper and that line. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to go to the other areas. So around here, I'm just kind of putting in, basically this is showing that there's lots of fur. So there's fur. After I put it down, I like to blend. And I kind of went a little bit outside the shape of my head. That's okay. I just now made my head bigger. Not a problem. Okay. Now that is still reading a little bit more green. What does it look like on the screen?
Yeah, a little greenish.
Okay, so I'm going to warm it up by doing a more reddish brown. And I'm just going to paint right over top of it. It's damp, but not enough to where if I did a layer on top, it would just blend out. If you have a lot of water on there, you might want to wait till it dries up a little bit more before you do another layer. Okay, that's feeling more warm. Gosh, I love this color that happened down here. It's like that turquoisey color. Do you see that?
Uh-huh.
Did you hear that little throat burp I had?
Just the stutter.
Okay. Okay. Now, take a moment and separate yourself from what you just painted, as in don't pay attention for it too long, because sometimes when we look at something so long, we're like, that doesn't look right, that doesn't look right. Move on. If your brain is starting to get there, move on to someplace else. I'm going to move on to finishing the nose and the mouth. So on my nose, I have a really dark value on this V, so I'm going to put that in. And then I'm going to move to the bottom of the mouth. Basically, you're just going to blend out. And I left the very bottom of the chin white because I want to make sure it doesn't blend in with my side cheeks. I'm going to grab a little bit of blue. It kind of almost looks like it has a little French mustache. Doesn't it?
Yeah.
So don't let your little shadows right here on the lips be so dark that it looks like a mustache. But sometimes once you see it, that's all you can see, you know?
You could also just keep the mustache if you want.
Listen, some pandas have mustaches, I feel.
Le panda.
Okay.
In all seriousness, we went to Paris last summer, and it was lovely, and everyone was lovely.
Yeah, it really was lovely.
And Coffee Shop Girl, thank you for all of the recommendations on restaurants if you watch these.
She was so sweet. We get to Paris immediately. We find the nearest coffee shop, and we ask this waitress, like, where should we eat? And I kept it still. She wrote down and highlighted her favorite places depending on what type of food we like and the location.
And price.
And price. And then she went through it all with us. She was so sweet.
She was. That was a good welcome to Paris.
It really was. It was so kind. Okay. Now I'm going to kind of blend out my nose here. If your V part that you put in is still really wet, maybe wait a second. Mine I felt like was dry enough. But basically, what you want to make sure with this nose is that the nostrils are dark. There's a lighter value on top of the nostril rim to show that there are nostrils there. And then this V is dark, and underneath there is dark. That's pretty much what we're looking at here. And this is also why, if you guys have bleed-proof white, super handy to have, especially when you're painting animals, because sometimes you accidentally paint the highlight with black and you're like, shoot, what do I do? Let it dry, do a little stroke of bleed-proof white over it, and you'll be fine. I can show you how to work there, how it works. When this is dry, I'll go back to that. Or you can just be really careful, which sometimes even when I try to be really careful, I mess it up. So it happens to the best of us. That's why I like having bleed-proof white. And if you don't have it, it's the bonus item in June.
Lovely.
So just sign up for the June box. Okay, where are we? Okay, now we're on step 4. I'm going to switch to my round 2. And I'm going to put in the eyeballs. Now, eyeball areas need to be tight, as in, don't paint it when the area is wet. And they need to be dark. So I'm using my round 2, I'm using my paint. However, if you want to take a black pen and do a black pen eyeball, no one will even know. I'm going to do it on one.
The pen police will know.
So I'm going to use a pen on one of them. If you don't have a pen, you can use a paintbrush. I'll use a paintbrush on the other one. I'm just going to outline my eye. And there is a highlight that I'm going to leave blank near the top. Now, if you leave your highlights too big, it's going to confuse viewers on what it is. It will seem like the whites of an eye instead of the glare on the black part of an eye. So just be aware. Okay, look, I did it with a pen, no frustration, we're good. Or you can use your round 2. And this one, I'm going to do a layer of water first, because I feel like when you layer water first and then put dark color on top, it stays darker better. This is a feeling I have. Do I know if it's scientifically proven? I don't know. It's just what I've noticed. So, just, oh, that had too much water. See that there's a little puddle drop on my paper? Can you see that from the side?
Yeah.
Too much water. I do not want to do that much water. So I'm going to pick that water up with a paper towel. I basically want this layer of water to just be like a thin layer of dampness. If it at all puddles or bubbles, you have too much water. Okay, and now I'm going to get my dark color. And drop it in. And I'm not talking because I gotta focus. Like so.
It's beautiful.
Leave it, don't touch it. Okay. So looking, we still have to finish the eyelids around it, but it's too wet to mess with, so we're just gonna leave that. We're gonna move on to another area. Looking at my panda nose, I was not patient enough and all of my dark ran together. You see how this is kind of looking one-dimensional and flat right now because the values all feel the same. Mm-hmm. Let me see if I have any, so one thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do another layer of black on the nostrils and on the V. If it's dry, if it's still wet, wait till it's dry to mess with it. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'm gonna go in with a little bit of white and see if I can bring my highlight back in that I lost. Okay. I also am going to add a little bit of my brown around the tops of my eyes, just a little bit, to show that even the white fur like has some shadow on it because the eye sockets go in. And it's just a little around the top. Okay. Also, if you're paying attention, you'll notice that these eyeballs are two different sizes. This one's smaller than this one. That's okay. Our faces are not symmetrical. Like, I feel like my left eye is always smaller than my right eye.
I feel that way too.
Do you really?
Not about you.
Oh.
About me. No, I'm just like, yes. I'm
like, oh my gosh, do I have this tiny eye that I didn't know about?
I feel like when I smile, my left eye squints.
Yes, me too.
It's weird, huh?
Do you guys notice that about yourself? Let us know.
Because it's like a dominant eye thing.
Maybe. Can you have a dominant eye? Is your right eye dominant usually?
Not usually, but I know you definitely have one. Like when you are like aiming something, like a bow or a gun or something, you use your dominant eye.
Oh.
Or a telescope.
Okay, I'm going in and I'm making my white eyelids a little bit thinner. And if they accidentally touch, so it's like not a perfectly straight line, that's okay. But I don't want them to be too thick either because again, that will make it look like the whites of an eye and not an eyelid. Okay, this is still too wet to mess with more. Let's do, okay, so I'm gonna move on to step 5 and do some finishing fur details before I finish off my nose and my eyes because they're too wet. And this is what I like to do. When an area is too wet, I'll just move on to another area. I like to just work my way around. So I'm gonna take my fan brush, pick up some color, and start doing some cool little fan textures. You guys can do cross hatching if you like, and cross hatching is when you do a few strokes one way and a few strokes the opposite way. You can do short little fuzzies like this. You can do long swoops. Really, have fun with it. And if you want to revisit your ears and do a couple textures around the ears. Now, since the ears are smaller, I don't feel like I have as much room to kind of go crazy. And I got this really gorgeous bloom on this left ear, which I didn't mean to do, but I love it, and I'm leaving it. Okay, and then I'm going to use, you can use your round 2 or the corner of your fan brush to do a couple little fur marks on the nose, in between the eyes. And maybe right here on the mouth. There. Now, one other thing that I want you guys to pay attention to is I want you to pay attention to your fur line on this neck. So I like to go in and kind of do a couple little swooshes in there to make the fur feel more thinner instead of these big, you see the difference between this side and this side? Yes. So you just got to go in and kind of do a little detail fur things. If you want to use your fan brush, you are more than welcome to. I'm using my round 2. Okay. Now, I'm going to do a quick swipe. If my eye is dry, I'm going to do a quick swipe around my eyelids because I don't want them to be, I want them to be a light value. I don't want them to be white paper. So I'm just going to do a quick swoop. Swoop. Just to soften that whiteness a little bit. And same thing on this side. Swoop. Swoop. And actually I didn't connect this, so I'm going to put that in there. And again, if you have to do another layer on your dark value, there is nothing wrong with that. Okay, I gotta pick it up to look at it. Okay. And then this glare is bigger on my right hand side than my left. So you have 2 options. You can either then make this glare a little bit smaller, or if you have bleed proof white, go in and make the left glare bigger. I'm gonna make the right one smaller. I feel like that would be easier. There we go. Is she softening up?
Is she what?
Is she softening up?
Oh, yeah.
Martha.
Sweet Martha.
Sweet little Martha. Let me see if I have some white to show you how to do that highlight on that nose. 1 second. I'm going to just grab a little bit of white on the tip of my round 2 and just right above where the nose is, the nostril, I'm going to put that white back in. And then, but bam, it's like my nose is 3-dimensional. Do you see that?
Turn my mic back on. It's impressive.
It is. I think so too. If you also if you want it to work on the eyes, you can have it do the eyes too, or the eyelids. It's super handy to have. So again, if you don't have it, but you're a subscriber, it is going to be in the June box. Like you can put eyelids in, you can put glares back in. It's really wonderful. Okay, I think we're done.
It's beautiful.
Does she still feel like a Martha?
I'm open to suggestions. Pam.
Panda.
Panda.
That's it. Panda. Okay, so thank you guys so much for painting this with me. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Again, have fun with this and feel free with this and explore and just try things. Maybe you have salt, throw that in there. Maybe you want to do a rainbow panda instead of black and white. Do that. That would be cool. This is your world that you are creating, so have fun with it. If you need any of these supplies, you can find them at letsmakeart.com. Oh, if you use bleed proof white on your paintbrush, rinse your paintbrush right away. Sorry, should have said that earlier. Okay. And if you're on social media, you can share what you make. We have a wonderful Facebook group called Let's Make Art Watercolor. It's just a place for you guys to go in and share with each other. We also have an Instagram, so if you want to see what other people are doing, you can look up hashtag Let's Make Art. You can tag us in it at Let's Go Make Art. And I think that's all I got to say.
I think that's it.
Thanks for painting with me, and have a wonderful day. See you next week.
You guys are awesome. Bye.
Bye.